Alright, this is going to be a recap of Tezuka's win in TTAC14 semifinals over Chicony, and also we'll do a very quick finals preview at the end. But I wanted to go over this game. I think it's Tezuka's best game of the tournament, so far at least, and I'm hoping to cover both semifinals. So I thought this game very much deserved a look. Chicony starts with 7-4, 2-7, and 9. And I think in actuality, this is effectively the losing mistake of the game. It technically isn't, but I think in practice it is. Um, on these split level sets, it can obviously be very hard to find a starter, especially if for whatever reason you don't want to throw your low level away early. Like if I'm looking at Chicony's hand, and Chicony chose to do an interesting thing with the hand. If we look at Tezuka's hand, we can see he really tried to grab four corners, right? 7-2-6-6 is best in 9, but can cover the right flank. 2-6-7-1 is best in 1. 6-7-4-2 is best in 7. We have 3 left, so our next level, 1-4-4-6, will be for 3, right? With some ability to cover the top row. And if we needed a backup, 7-2-6-6 also works in 3. 1-6-2-2, I think, was probably a starter setup. It looks like that potentially going in 4 might be supported by 6-7-4-2. As you can see from Tezuka's hand, it is not guaranteed that a hand will have a 7 in each direction. Neither hand has a 7 in each direction, so there was always a chance 1-6-2-2 will be safe heading towards 5, and you'll have a nice recapture. I suspect as a backup plan, it also gives a weak thing he can throw in a square like 3 or 9 that is an easy recapture for his remaining cards. Now, Chicony's hand, and Chicony often doesn't balance hands in the way I assume they would be balanced, which doesn't mean he's making mistakes here. It is just to say different instincts. But there is a card for 1, the 4-6-7-3. There's a card for 3, the 4-1-6-7. There's a card for 9, the 7-4-2-7. And I guess 6-3-2-6 goes in 7. And that's not that much worse than a 6-4 corner, though it is a little, right? Because we see a lot of the high level cards, the third best number is a 4. So upping from a 3 to a 4 yourself does a lot of dodging being capturable by the higher level card's third best side. So there is some difference there. And then the 1-1-4-4 has a recapture on the 7-4-2-7-7. The 6-3-2-3 is also good at capturing 7s, all those 7s down. And I suspect Chicony was choosing between his high-level corner starters for a starter, right? He has ways to recapture the 7s heading down on both, though he can only recapture one of the 6s. Now, I think one of the difficult things about using low-level cards, or using low-level cards as your recapturers of corners, is it often makes you use the corner, the powerful card, and hold on to weaker cards that can recapture, but are often really limited in what they can do, right? The 1-1-4-4 can work exactly in 6, but is in general not going to have a very good time facing a game in 9, right? It might have some play facing 7, might have some play facing out from 3, but this is a game where it kind of becomes a single purpose card. 6-3-2-3 similarly may have trouble finding play. I actually like the way he ends up using it, but the low levels can easily run out of potential play because they're weaker cards. They have play in less directions and less powerful play in general, and I think using the high level first can be an easy way to walk yourself into some trouble. However, that's not really the problem with this starter. The problem is when you play a high level, a high power outfacing big corner starter, if the opponent has combo play against it, it can become impossible for you to play near it. And, if you have one card recapturing for each spot, that can be okay. You just hold on to that one card. But if you have I said that badly. If you have one card for both spots, that can be okay. But if you have one card for each spot, you're not going to be able to hold on to both till the end. And so often you're going to have to start blocking squares around it and hoping not to be comboed too hard. And usually I think you want to get comboed early rather than late. Later you kind of have less time to recover and the combo often extends further. So that's kind of my fear with big corners. Of course, the question here is, can Tezuka actually set up against it? Tezuka already has 8, but can he set up to have 6? And you'll notice Chicony is a recapture in 6, but no capture in 8. So if Tezuka does capture from 8, Chicony is the recapture. But if Tezuka can set up in 6, it becomes really dangerous. And Tezuka finds what looks to me like the only way to set up in 6. I guess technically 6-7-4-2 in 5 also sets up in 6. But it is a few downsides to it. One, it gives up your attack in 8. So now if Chicony blocks 6, you've given up your capture. And 2, it sets up Chicony to have 8 as well, so Chicony will have a lot more freedom on how to deal with it there, though he probably will just block 6. So Tezuka finds the only way to set up something in 6, specifically he now has a same there, and this is now just really tough for Chicony to play. And I had an instinct here, and it's sort of a good instinct, but sort of a bad instinct. So I'm going to talk about like what could have been done to tie here. Again, this is very far out to calculate, and fundamentally, Tezuka has 2 really big advantages here. He has 4 cards in hand that are clearly higher power level than the 4 cards in Chicony's hand. And second of all, Chicony only has a recapture in 6, so Tezuka is threatening now to take in 6, because Chicony can't take back from 8, and it's really hard for him to start blocking those squares, because he gets comboed through them, right? It's not that Tezuka's just taking, Tezuka is comboing through 9. And this is another thing big corners have as a general problem. It's not just that it can be hard to play next to them. It can be because they're inherently a large number, the opponent is most likely taking via combo, not by overpowering, and thus the fact that they have high outfacing numbers can be such a problem. And here Tezuka has achieved that wonderfully. And also the 1622, which I think was nicely chosen in Tezuka's hand, is a card that is already very happy to go in 3 because he has such an easy time recapturing it with pretty high numbers facing out if need be. So what do we do here as Chicony? My instinct, and it's not a great instinct. I mean, I think it's a good instinct, but it's not a great move here. Was you have to block 6. We have to get 6 and 8 off the board. They cannot be left on the board. I concede too much combo potential. Have to get rid of it. I want to play something in 6. And I want to play something in 6 that can't be comboed through 9. So I'd have to use another one of my high levels, which is really scary to do. And when considering which card to put there, I want to not be susceptible to combo. I want a high number facing out. And I want to keep my better cards for the rest of the game, which makes the choice pretty clearly 4176, which won't face the action and does have the higher number facing out and is safe to 9, rather than 4673, which isn't as many of those things. So I would have been strongly considering, and I suspect Chicony was, 4176 and 6. But the problem is after Tezuka plays 6742 and 8, Tezuka locks in 9 and has a huge threat to plus in 5. And if you block 5, you're giving up so much right power, especially if you want to capture 8. It's going to be pretty easy for Tezuka to follow up with probably 7266 or 1446 and 2, which will be safe with that 6 facing to the left. Chicony's hand having the 467s both with the 7 facing down does hurt a little bit here with an inability to take 6s. On the other hand, he didn't know Tezuka's hand would be so 6 heavy, but I think Tezuka built a good hand here. So after 4176 and 6, 6742 and 8, it's really not obvious where a tie should be. I believe, I checked this yesterday with the solver, so I might not be remembering right. I believe the only tie there for Chicony after 4176 and 6, 6742 and 8 is 1144 and 1. And that's just a very hard move to find. It says I need to put something down I can capture, and it sets up the other cards to have decent sweeper potential in the remaining game. But there are so many moves blocking 5, blocking 2, blocking 7, setting up something in 4. It's probably the last square you're going to check, and it's just really hard to justify a move there when there's so many other places to look. And not only that, but you have to see it at a distance. to make 4-1-7-6 and 6 a good move, you have to see a response to 8 from the position we're looking at. And so I think that is an incredibly difficult path to a tie. And while there's a decent chance I might have made the first move in 6, I think it's a pretty low chance I would have followed up in 1. So I think the standard way, in my opinion, of how to defend these positions just doesn't work. I think the second thing to do is kind of accept that you've lost 9. 9 is theirs. They're going to take it at some point. You can't do anything about it. They've not put anything else on the board that you have trouble taking. You know, the 1-6-2-2 is easy for both players to take. I think the second strategy here, and the one that's a little better than the one I would usually do, is the kind of, I just have to put out stuff I can take here. And so the solver identifies 1-1-4-4 and 1 as a tie, or 1-1-4-4 and 7, or very weirdly 1-1-4-4 and 8, but again, you have to find a crazy difficult move the next turn, right? Your sequence is 1-1-4-4 and 8, Tezuka plays 2-6-7-1 and 6, and of course your planned save was 4-1-7-6 and 7, not even taking back 8. Right? The calculation to get these moves to work has to be so deep, and you have to for some reason be drawn to an incredibly unappealing move to find it. So I think in practice this position is just basically lost. Like, the solver says 5 of 28 moves tie, but I think in practice it's just like, here's one thing. Like, I could see very easily having 1-1-4-4 and 1 or 1-1-4-4 and 7 as a candidate move. But it would be very hard to pick it over other moves, and it's very difficult to use up the card that is your recapture in 6. And so you sort of have to accept, and I think this is really hard to do, they've won my starter. That's just theirs. They're always going to be able to take it in a way I can't deal with. So I can't care about it. And if you don't care about it at all, then I think you can get to those moves and have them move up your priority list into a spot where you might actually play them. But this is a nightmare position to play. I think Tezuka's adjacent corner here just so strong. I actually quite like how Chicony handled this game after the starter. Chicony goes in 5. He gives himself play in 8. Right, he now has 2 different pluses in 8, 6-3-2-3, but also 4-1-7-6. And he also puts a card that's pretty easy for him to take. We kind of have a game plan now, and I like having a plan, right? We want to play one of 6-3-2-3 or 4-1-7-6 in 2 or 8 in response to 5, and then we want to play such that 4-6-7-3 is our endgame sweeper. Going down, it can likely take anything. It's going to be able to take most things to the right of it. We have a potential sweeper. And so looking at this position from Tezuka's point of view, my first instinct was, okay, let's look at the standard move. 2-6-7-1 and 6. You know, you take everything. You're up 7-3. You've taken the free square. Obviously, you're never getting comboed back because you've samed everything. But after 4-1-7-6 and 8, making it 5-5, you want to block 2. Either card with a 6 out and 2 is going to be safe, and you're going to go up 6-4. But at the end, Chicony has 6-3-2-3 in 7, which is safe because the 2-6-7-1 came out of our hand, and the 4-6-7-3 is guaranteed at least 1 capture at the end. So I thought, okay, I don't think we have a win in 2 after 8. Okay, so 2-6-7-1 and 6, 4-1-7-6 and 8. Okay, what if I take it? 6-7-4-2 and 7. Nah, then they can combo back with 4-6-7-3 because they have that plus wall. And even worse, actually, I think they shouldn't combo back. I think if they play 6-3-2-3 and 2 there, making it 5-5, I think they actually just win. Because your only card that has a capture in 4, 1-4-4-6 is no captures. And 4-6-7-3 is going to sweep. Really powerfully there. Yeah. So I think you can actually lose there. So I started looking at 6, but 8 seemed a good response. Now, you could check other cards in 6. The reason that 2-6-7-1 and 6 appealed to me was I liked flipping 9 and sort of forcing the action. But because Chicony has so many cards he's happy to put in 8, right? A 6 facing out is pretty good. That finds a good use for his 4-1-7-6. It's probably the card he'd put there anyway. And one benefit of capturing if the opponent is going to play in a square anyway is it forces a specific card out of their hand. but here it forces the card out that Chicony would want to use anyway. So it's kind of unnecessary to capture if we're going to play in 6. And I think the thing to think about is, what do we need remaining in our hand? Well, from one of those lines we looked at, 2-6-7-1 would be great to hold on to, because if Chicony ever plays 6-3-2-3 and 7, we have a way to capture it, and that will often finish off the game and get the win. Another thing is, the 6-7-4-2, while it doesn't always have an immediate capture, it is the only thing with a threat of capture. So that seems pretty useful. Another thing that seems really useful is having something with a 6 to the left to put in 2. That's going to be safe, and that's going to be a really powerful move down the road. So we kind of need to we probably want to keep our 7 down, we want to keep our 7 to the right, and we want to keep a 6 to the left. Which is the only one of those that's redundant? It's the 6s to the left. So I think there are wins in 6, and I think it's either of the cards with a 6 to the left. I think then you have just enough firepower to meet 8 with a move in 2 with a 6 to the left, and your final 2 cards combine to be able to deal with whatever threat they have, right? If they go for kind of 6-3-2-3 and 7, well, you take from 4, you're up 7-3, and they can't take back the card in 2. So I think there are ways to win in 6, but it takes not just figuring out what do I want to do now, but what am I going to need down the road. And it's one of those things like where you start by calculating 2-6-7-1 and 6, and then you have to use what you learned about the position to play one of the better moves. Or you could be smart and think, I really want to get out a card from my hand that has limited right power. Okay, either 1-4-4-6 or 7-2-6-6 and work from there. Maybe you can get there quicker, but that's how I would get there. On the other hand, Tezuka played a much, I think, simpler and just as good way, where he realized, oh, you used 1-1-4-4. That was your recapture in 6. You don't have a recapture in 6 anymore. I can play an 8. And one of the reasons I like this try from Chicony is 6 is a more desirable square to go in than 8. And Chicony is kind of pushing Tezuka to play in the less desirable square. 6 is a kind of free lock-in. 8, whatever you do there is going to have to be vulnerable. But Tezuka calculates it out really well. He said he only saw it after he looked at it once, decided it was a tie, looked at some other stuff, couldn't find a win, and came back to it to find it. But he finds a very nice move in 8, and I think this is the most elegant way to win this position. Notably, if Chicony takes the square in 6, Tezuka can just play safely in 7. And Chicony's cards don't line up very well. I'm not sure that's actually... It might depend on what card Chicony puts in 6, but we can immediately see there is a huge threat to play 7-2-6-6 and 7. That is a really big threat. But maybe just as big a threat is to meet 6 with like 1-4-4-6 and 2. Right? If Chicony plays, let's say, 4-1-7-6 and 6, he makes it 5-5. 1-4-4-6 and 2, it's 7-3. And like 6-3-2-3 and 7, 6-4 is met by 2-6-7-1 and 4, 7-3. And again, 4-6-7-3 can only take one card at the end. It can't take those 6s to the left. So that's probably actually the answer. But the dual threat of 2 and 7 is very powerful here. And you'll see how important and you see there how important it was that Tezuka held on to something that can take a 6 facing up. That ends up being a really critical card, right? If the card in 5 had a 2 to the left, so 7-2-6-6 could control that, then maybe it wouldn't be so necessary. But finding a way to keep that in his hand was really smart of Tezuka. I think Chicony goes for the best try here. Again, he played, I think, a bad first move, and after that did kind of the most he could practically to salvage the position. His move in 5 is losing, yes, and there were a few tying moves, but those tying moves are either really hard to find, require just incredible calculation at distance to see that other horrible looking positions aren't lost, or the other ties are basically realizing 1-1-4-4 needs to come out of his hand despite looking useful and just dump it somewhere. And it's hard to say that like 1 or 7 is a clearly better dump than 5. I mean, that's basically what he did. It just happened not to work, and different ways would have, but again, really hard to figure out over the board. So again, I think Chicony found the best defense in practice, or one of the best defenses in practice. And Tezuka only has one winning path here. And the core idea, I think, there are two core ideas for Chicony. One, with his move in 5, he has made sure 2 and 6 are squares where he will always have double captures. So if 1 and 4 get filled, 4, 6, 7, 3 is probably going to be a good enough sweeper. And second of all, if 6 is occupied immediately, then Chicony can take 2, it's, counterpart square, and he'll flip 3 and 5, and that will put him up 6-4, and 4-1-7-6 will be able to capture one final card if needed to hold the tie. So it's actually a pretty good defensive concept here, and it only very narrowly misses working. Because Tezuka does find the correct move, really nice move, 2, 6, 7, 1, and 4. There are lots of options, but the way this works, or there are lots of, this isn't that far down the list of moves you check, but to see it works, you have to see that they can't take from 1 and then have double captures in the last 2 squares and hold a tie. And the reason Chicony can't do that is because 7-2-6-6 actually is a same or plus against either card that could land in 1. And that's what clinches the victory here. Really nicely calculated by Tezuka. Excellently played game. And honestly, I think Chicony just made one bad move, and split level sets can be tricky. I think Tezuka did also come in with the better hand, which helped. Chicony blocks 6. Tezuka takes 2. And I like that the game is clinched in the end by a 6 facing out to the left. That feels the right way for the game to end, because that has been what Tezuka has set up so well throughout the game, and it was what has been so important in so many variations. And I did a slightly lower shot so you could see the score at the bottom. And Tezuka gets the win, and he ends up also, after a few ties, winning a close game as well to advance to the finals, which brings us to our finals preview. So I'm going to be doing a recap live with Piggy, so I thought that's already going to be covered. I don't need to look over the game specifically here. You'll definitely get your fair share of Piggy Man. And just briefly talk about our 2 finalists and how they got there. By my tournament ELO ratings, Piggy Man is slight favorite. The mean player is rated about 2,000. 2,200 is way, way above average. And most players you think of as really good never break 2,200. I think maybe 25, 30-ish players have ever broken 2,200. It's a pretty elite group. I did a video called Triple Triad Masters, where I set that as the master path. I think at that point in time, Tezuka had never broken 2,200, but with this run to the finals, he now has and joins that group. 60-point gap. I'm not sure exactly what the odds on that are. It's probably around 55-45 favorite, so really close to a coin flip by my ratings. And on the other hand, my ratings, while they did win the prediction contest for the last tournament, they have not performed very well on this one. So, we'll see how that goes. Both these players are awesome, and I'll be really happy for both wins, for whoever wins. They're both just wonderful players, and this is the first finals for both of them, and will be the first championship for one of them. And they're 2 of the greats. I believe in my last all-time ranking, I had Piggy Man 26th, and Tezuka 35th or 36th, maybe 36th, somewhere around there. I suspect they're both going to move up quite a bit. Now, quite a bit might mean 4 slots or something, 3 slots. It gets pretty hard to move because there are so many just elite players you have to pass over. But I'm really excited for both. I haven't input yet where they'll land if they win, so I'm kind of saving that as a treat for myself, as weird as that might sound. Just to talk about them both during this run, I think they both have a good claim to have played the best tournament so far, and I think they're... Sometimes you reach a finals and you're like, these weren't the 2 best players in the tournament, right? 2 players played awesome, they met in the semifinals, and one of them lost, and whoever the winner of it plays in the finals will have been a weaker player for the run. Now, that doesn't mean that weaker player will not win the finals. You know, it's certainly happened that one player goes through the impossible bracket, one player goes through an easy bracket and looks shaky throughout, and then that player manages to pull off the final win. But I still don't think that necessarily means they played the best tournament. And I think, you know, the two finalists probably on average did not play the best tournaments. I've had some tournaments where I made the finals where I played really badly. I've had others where I played phenomenally. And I won some of the ones I wasn't playing well, and I lost some of the ones I was, you know. But I think both of them so far have a really good claim to best player of the tournament. And I'm really pleased that I think the final two of this tournament are the two people that have played the best triple triad. And I think there was a case for some other people entering the semifinals, but the way this went has made it pretty clear. Tezuka is just undefeated in the tournament. He's the only player who never lost a game. Everyone else has lost at least 3, including Piggy Man, and he's lost 0. Now, he did get a bye in the first round, and potentially, you know, could have lost. But even if he loses a game to Kaus, he still has 2 fewer losses than anyone else in the tournament. He has 3 wins and 4 ties in open, 3 wins and just 2 ties in closed. He was the only undefeated semi-finalist, and he has kept the streak alive. Tezuka has not lost a single game in a TTAC. And one thing I'm excited about moving forward with records keeping is I wonder if anyone's going to be able to equal, you know, a run like this, making the finals of, you know, a best of 3 tournament without having lost a single game. That's crazy. And while I think he had the easiest path to the quarterfinals, or to the semifinals, that doesn't mean it was easy. And he's now beaten both Acela and Chicony, which makes this clearly a worthy road. And I think actually, you know, he got Kaus. I'm forgetting who his second round opponent was. He's played good players the whole way, just not quite as strong as Piggy's opposition. But he's also undefeated, so he certainly has a claim to just having been untouchable so far. And Piggy, on the other side, has been touched, but only lightly. He's lost 3 games. He's won his last 3 matches 2-1 each. But if you look at who it was against, you know, it's a combined 10-time tournament winner, right? Over his last 3, and he's beaten all of them. He has 5 wins to 1 loss in open. He has 3 wins to 2 losses in closed. I think he's played well in closed. That closed record doesn't look as dominant, but he's played really good opposition, and it is hard to just win all your games in closed, unless you're like Delhi in the GBs, which is just very obnoxious of him. Yeah, so I think you have the player who's just beaten everyone and beaten them kind of quickly and without ever being in danger, versus a player who has been in some danger. He's had, you know, each of the matches has been tied 1-1. He's been down 1-0, or each of the last 3 matches. But every time he's won, and he's won against just really incredibly good opposition. So I think there's a good case both are playing the best of the tournament. You know, Tezuka really hasn't made mistakes. Piggy Man has, but Piggy Man has done it against an absurdly high level of competition, and he has played so well. They've made clearly many more mistakes than he has, because he's, you know, it's kind of the unforced versus forced errors of tennis. Piggy Man has caused a lot of forced errors, right? And yeah, I'm really excited to see it. I'm going to be doing a new re-ranking tournament players series after this. I did my top 100 ranking. I think this one I'll probably just do like a top 60 or something. Though I did rank another 30 more players than I did last time. So I could extend it to like top 120 or something, but I think that'll be a bit much. I think I'll probably just do top 60 this time. But I'm excited about that, and it's going to be fun to see where these two players land.